But there was one scientist who told them, he warned them, he said, yes, it's safe to handle pork, it's safe to eat pork, but what's going to happen if you put a pig organ into the body that is being constantly supplied by blood and the cells are moving throughout the body, it could create a disease that we would have no cure for.
Well, that's true. Well, now they put pig valves in us. Could that be a problem?
I think it could be because they're using something like that. And that's what they said. That's why it had to. Oh, let me see. Back up here. I lost my train of thought there.
It's getting late for you.
Okay. No, my mind is always jumping all over the place on what it's going to say next. Uh-huh. But they said by being in the body and generated like that, anyway, for a while they stopped the experimentation because they were worried about it. But now they said they've started it up again. They've ignored the other scientists' warning, and they're moving ahead with it. That's probably what you're finding out now about the pig valves.
Yeah.
So they said this is not a good idea. You're going down a road that's going to lead to destruction. That and the misuse of power, the nuclear power, all of this. They can't allow this to happen.
Well, looking into your crystal ball, Dolores, what do you see the next 5-10 years for us to be like?
We're going to move into the new earth.
That's a good thing.
Oh, it's definitely a good thing. Now, in the Bible, this is called, in the book of Revelation, the new heaven and the new earth. It's all there in the Bible if you want to go back to that, the book of Revelation, where there's a separation. Now, they said those who are interested in this, those who understand what's happening, the ones into metaphysics, the ones who are thinking along this line, will definitely go to the new earth. Everyone will not go. The ones who are still into negativity, who are stuck on the wheel of karma, who are very, they're doing all these awful things, like you're talking about the greedy and those, they will stay with the old earth. They will stay with what they created. But the new earth is happening now. The vibrations and frequencies are changing, and it's going to move into a totally new dimension. Now, when that happens, it's a separation of the two. This is what's very hard to understand. I've asked them many times. I have more and more questions. It's in several of my books. As I learn more, I keep adding more information. And I keep asking more questions, and they said, we can't tell you what's going to happen for sure because we don't have all the answers, because this has never happened in the history of a universe before, that an entire planet will shift into another dimension. They said it's the greatest show on Earth. The ETs, everybody in space is watching this to see, can we pull it off? It's a big thing that's going to happen. And the new earth is going to be glorious. It's going to be wonderful. And that's where the majority of us are headed, as long as we understand what's going on. Part of my job is to let people know.
Is there anything, well, how do we know that we're not one of the volunteers, for example?
You wouldn't know.
We don't know that, do we?
No, you don't know. I only found this out with my work.
What percent might be volunteers?
Well, they said now there's tens of thousands everywhere.
So most of us aren't, probably.
Well, look what you're interested in.
Yeah, I know. That's true.
I'm not sure your age, if you fall into that category or not.
I'm 93 years old.
Oh, yeah, you don't look a day over.
59.
59, okay. You could possibly be in the upper part, one of the first ones. But you see your interest in this, the metaphysical and the strange. You want to find out the truth. That puts you in the category that you will go to the new earth. You're trying to understand things.
When did you start seeing these I'll call them patients. They're really not. But
clients.
Clients. When did you start seeing the clients starting to talk about this?
Well, the first one I said was 20 years ago when I wrote the book Keepers of the Garden. It was the first one I'd ever heard of. And then years went by. I guess you would think maybe in the last 10 years or more, it's becoming more and more prevalent.
And you're beginning to see more and more clients who fit into this category.
Yes, and this is what comes out. It's no longer being hidden in my sessions. They don't go into past lives. They go into these other things. And I began thinking, what's going on here? Because in my class, I teach them to take them into past lives, but now we have exceptions to the rule. There are people that have not had any karma. They're not supposed to be here. But I think, I don't know the percentages, but it's happening quite often in my work, and I see hundreds and hundreds of people in a year. Keeps coming up, you know.
There is a very spiritual tie-in to this.
Definitely.
That's what I find that fascinating. You know, like the tie-in to the Book of Revelation and in areas like that. Is there going to be like an antichrist in all of this somehow?
Now you're going into Nostradamus.
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you, you know, when I got the Nostradamus material, this was in 1986 when I was working on all of that, and that would be over 20 years ago. And I wrote the 3 volumes, and I lectured on that for many, many years, warning people with what was to come. But that was what Nostradamus told me to do. He said, you must go all over the world and tell people what will happen if they don't do something.
Conversations with Nostradamus, if I remember, right?
Oh, yes. It was 3 years and 12 different people, and we did all of the quatrains. And many, many of them have come true. But I began to wonder. I stopped lecturing on it, maybe 10 years ago, because I got into this other material now that is deeper. So, but according to the predictions, we should have been into a horrible world war with the Middle East before the beginning of the year 2000.
Well, now, we came close.
We did. We came very close. And dates are the hardest thing for any psychic to see.
True.
But he said, he wanted me to tell people, he said, if I tell you the most horrible things you can do to yourself, will you do something to change it? Now, he said the future is not carved in stone, and he told me this many, many times, that you can make a difference, you can make changes, that there are many probabilities and possibilities, that it's like he saw a nexus point, and he said at the nexus point was an event or a personality that had to happen. From that, it branched out into all these various possibilities and possibilities that could happen from that event or that person. And he said, your future depends on which one of these paths you go down. That's why he was trying to show us, if I show you the absolute worst that will happen if you go down this certain path, will you do something to change it? And that's why he wanted me to tell people, you don't know the power of your own mind.
They won't force us to change, though. We've got to do this on our own.
Oh, we have to. That's the whole thing, the planet of free will. But you don't know the power of your own mind. Everything in your life you have created, you have put there. And you know, many, many times in your own life, you come to a point where you have to make a decision. Should I go this way? Should I go that way? Mm-hmm. Should I get divorced? Should I marry? Should I get this job? Should I go to college? We all come up with decisions. And you know, whatever decision you make, your life would have been totally different than the one you chose. So these are the other possibilities and probabilities. So I gave a lecture. We have our own conference we put on here. It's my conference in June. And so I brought up Nostradamus again. And my theory is now, Nostradamus said, if you're that powerful, you can create your own reality.
Let's finish up with Nostradamus when we come back, Dolores, and then we're going to take phone calls with your final hour. So we'll be right back on Coast to Coast AM.